In this series, we look into the human body, and today it's the turn of the hearing organ or ear. We're going to look at 10 different processes that happen within the ear, so keep watching to find out what they are. Before we start, if you haven't already, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell icon to receive notifications for new videos. With that said, let's get started. Number 10. Collecting sound waves. The first process that happens within the hearing organ is collecting sound waves from the external environment. Sound is produced by vibrations, which cause pressure waves to travel through the air, like ripples spreading out across the surface of water. These waves then enter the ear canal, where their movement causes the eardrum, also known as the tympanic membrane, to vibrate. This is the first step in the hearing process. So without sound waves entering the ear canal, the remaining processes wouldn't take place. Number 9. Converting pressure waves into mechanical movements. Once the eardrum has begun to vibrate due to incoming sound waves, the next process that takes place is converting the pressure waves into mechanical movements. This occurs because sound waves, or more specifically, the vibrations produced by sound waves, are a type of energy known as acoustic energy. However, the middle ear, which is the part of the ear that the eardrum belongs to, contains 3 tiny bones called the malleus, incus, and stapes, which are the hammer, anvil, and stirrup. These bones work together to transfer the acoustic energy from the vibrating eardrum into mechanical movements of the bones themselves. As the eardrum vibrates, the malleus bone, which is attached to the eardrum, moves. Then the incus bone receives the movement and passes it on to the stapes bone. And finally, the stapes bone transfers the energy to the oval window, a membrane-covered opening that leads into the inner ear. In other words, the function of these 3 tiny bones is to take the energy from the vibrating eardrum and convert it into mechanical movements of the bones before passing the energy along to the inner ear. Number 8. Amplifying the sound. The third process in the hearing organ is amplifying the sound. Here's where things get really interesting, because there's a reason why the middle ear has these 3 small bones. It's to amplify the sound waves, so they're strong enough to vibrate the fluid inside the inner ear. And this amplification is crucial because the fluid in the inner ear is much harder to move than air. You see, the pressure waves entering the ear canal are quite weak, and it's estimated that they need to be amplified by around 20 to 40 times to overcome the resistance of the fluid in the inner ear. So how does the middle ear achieve this? Well, it's due to 2 main factors. The first is that the area of the eardrum is around 60 times greater than the area of the oval window. So as the eardrum vibrates, it moves a larger surface area of air compared to the smaller surface area of the oval window, meaning when the stapes bone pushes on the oval window to move it, it's able to exert a much higher pressure than the force the eardrum received from the air. This alone provides an amplification of around 4 to 5 times. But the middle ear bones also have a lever action. The incus bone is longer than the malleus bone, and the stapes bone is shorter than the incus bone, meaning there's a mechanical advantage in the system. Overall, this means that the middle ear is able to amplify the incoming sound waves sufficiently to overcome the resistance of the fluid in the inner ear and allow them to pass through. Number 7. Transduction. The fourth process in the hearing organ is transduction. By now, the sound waves have been converted into mechanical movements and amplified. And this brings us to the inner ear, which contains structures that transduce, meaning convert, the mechanical movements into electrical signals that can be sent to the brain for interpretation. Specifically, the transduction occurs in the cochlea, a spiral-shaped organ filled with fluid and lined with sensory hair cells. When the amplified sound waves reach the oval window, they cause the fluid inside the cochlea to ripple. This movement stimulates the hair cells to bend, which triggers the release of neurotransmitters. These chemicals send signals to the connected nerve cells, which then carry the electrical signals to the brain. It's here that the brain interprets the signals as sound. Interestingly, the location along the cochlea, where the bending of the hair cells occurs, determines the pitch of the sound. High-frequency sounds cause the base of the cochlea to vibrate, whereas low-frequency sounds cause the apex to vibrate. Number 6. Auditory nerve signal transmission. The fifth process in the hearing organ is the transmission of signals along the auditory nerve. Once the electrical signals have been created in the cochlea, they're carried by the auditory nerve to the brain. This nerve is made up of around 30,000 nerve fibers, each connected to a specific group of hair cells in the cochlea. When the hair cells bend, the corresponding nerve fiber becomes active and transmits a signal to the brain. The brain then processes the signals from all the different nerve fibers to create our perception of sound. Number 5. Brain interpretation. Now that the signals have reached the brain, the sixth process in the hearing organ is the brain's interpretation of the signals. The brainstem first filters out background noise and other irrelevant sounds, allowing us to focus on the sounds that are important to us. It also analyzes the pitch, volume, and other characteristics of the sounds, allowing us to perceive them in detail. Finally, the brain combines the auditory information with input from other senses, such as vision and touch, to create a complete perception of the world around us. For example, when we see someone talking, the brain combines the visual cues with the auditory cues to create a coherent perception of the person speaking. Number 4. Protection from loud sounds. The seventh process in the hearing organ is protecting the delicate structures of the ear from loud sounds. The ear has several mechanisms to protect itself from damage. If a loud sound occurs, the muscles in the middle ear contract, causing the malleus bone to pull away from the eardrum. This reduces the amount of movement of the eardrum and protects it from excessive vibration. Additionally, the brain can also reduce the volume of sound that we perceive by activating the auditory reflex. This reflex reduces the sensitivity of the hair cells in the cochlea, preventing them from being damaged by loud sounds. Number 3. Balance. While not directly related to hearing, balance is an essential function of the ear that relies on the vestibular system located in the inner ear. The vestibular system consists of 3 semicircular canals and 2 otolith organs, which work together to detect changes in head position and movement. The semicircular canals are responsible for detecting rotational movements of the head, such as those that occur during spinning or when we're on a merry-go-round. They contain fluid that moves when the head rotates, stimulating hair cells that send signals to the brain about the direction and speed of the movement. The otolith organs are responsible for detecting linear movements of the head, such as those that occur when we're walking or riding in a car. They contain crystals of calcium carbonate that shift when the head moves, bending hair cells and sending signals to the brain about the direction and speed of the movement. These signals are then integrated with information from other sources to give us our sense of balance. Number 2. Sound localization. Another important process that occurs in the hearing organ is sound localization, which is the ability to determine the location of a sound source. This process relies on the brain's ability to analyze the subtle differences in sound that reach each ear. For example, if a sound source is to one side of the listener, the sound will arrive at that ear first before traveling to the other ear. The brain uses this slight delay in time between the 2 ears to calculate the location of the sound source. Additionally, the brain also uses the difference in volume between the 2 ears to help localize the sound. As sound waves travel through the air, they lose intensity as they spread out. This means that the sound will be louder in the ear that is closer to the source and quieter in the ear that is farther away. By analyzing the difference in volume between the 2 ears, the brain can determine the location of the sound source. Together, these 2 cues allow us to accurately localize sounds in our environment. Number 1. Storing and retrieving auditory information. The final process that occurs in the hearing organ is storing and retrieving auditory information. When we hear something for the first time, the brain stores the information in our memory. This allows us to recognize that sound in the future. For example, if we hear a song for the first time and then later on hear it again on the radio, the brain can retrieve the stored information and match it to the current sound. This process is essential for many aspects of our lives, such as language, acquisition, music appreciation, and social interaction. By storing and retrieving auditory information, we're able to communicate effectively, enjoy music, and build relationships with others. So there you go, 10 different processes that occur in the hearing organ. Hopefully you found this video interesting and learned something new. If you did, please remember to hit the like button, subscribe, and share it with your friends. Thank you for watching, and until next time, stay curious.